Do you wonder why the rich use debt despite having a lot of money? Could you really make money using debt? And could you copy what the rich do to make money with debt? In this video, I'll explain how the rich use debt and drastically make more money than you. Watch to the end to understand how the rich invest using debt and multiply their wealth. Then see how James made over 5 times more than George in his investments by using debt. This is Growth Guide, your guide to growing your wealth. Let's say you have $50,000 to invest and want a return of $50,000. That's a 100% return on investments, ROI. How would you do this in the shortest time with the lowest risk to your initial investment? You could take the $50,000 to the casino and bet it all on red. Pretty risky business, 50% chance of walking out with $100,000, but also an equal chance of walking out with $0. Of course you aren't that silly, so you may invest it. You can use the $50,000 to start a business, but unfortunately 20% of new businesses fail in the first year, and 60% don't make it past the first 5 years. So almost like the casino scenario, but with a lot more wasted effort, time, and headaches. You may think, why not buy an existing business that has survived longer than the 5 years? Yeah, that's a fair point. But if you had an existing business that is thriving and doing well, why would you sell it? And what type of business can $50,000 even buy? Typically, this level of business would be an owner-operator business, which is effectively like buying yourself a job, like a mobile cleaning service, cafe, struggling restaurant, car wash, etc. So you would have to either quit your current job or do this on top of your current job and probably kiss your free time goodbye. What about investing in the stock market and reinvesting the earnings each year? This is definitely less risky and much easier. Probably safest to pick an index fund, which will keep your risk profile low. Let's say you choose to put your $50,000 into the S&P 500, an index fund of the top 500 US companies with an average return of 7.5% in the last 5 years. How long would it take to compound your $50,000 to return a 100% ROI? The answer is roughly 10 years, so definitely not the quickest way. See, the problem is that if you aim for a higher percentage return, you expose yourself to more risk of losing money. And if you aim for a lower percentage return, your risk goes down, but the time it takes to make money gets extended. This is the dynamic of the principal and the percentage returns. The best way to make a 100% ROI is to use leverage. The Greek mathematician Archimedes once famously said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." Leverage allows you to do more with less effort. You can probably guess by the title of this video that the lever I'm talking about is debt. If you use debt to increase the principal amount, then the returns you chase could be more modest, yet you yield a greater return relative to your initial investment. Allow me to illustrate. First, you find an investment that has very predictable returns, that also generates some level of cash flow to pay for debt obligations. So for this example, let's use an investment property. You see an investment property worth $500,000. Based on your market research, you qualify that the investment property has a modest annual appreciation of 5% and the rental yield can service any debt obligations. You go to your bank and they say, bring a 10% deposit, we could loan you the rest. So you use your $50,000 as a deposit and buy the investment property. After the first year, the value appreciates to $525,000, the second year to $551,250. In the second year, you sell the property and make a $51,250 profit before taxes, which is a 102.5% ROI. And this was achieved with very little effort, little risk, and 8 years quicker than compounding in the stock market. By using debt to buy assets, you increase the principal value, so you can chase modest gains with little risk. Therefore, using debt to leverage actually is a much safer and predictable way of making money. This is how the rich operate. They know that using debt to increase your principal is the cheat code for creating wealth. James and George work together and have young families to provide for. They both know that their salaries alone won't make them wealthy. They need to make investments. James and George both have a $50,000 investment fund and want to invest it to grow their wealth. George has read many books on stock investing and commits to invest his $50,000 in the stock market. He told James that he would reinvest all his earnings and use the power of compounding. James thought compounding in the stock market is a good investment, but it's so slow. He didn't want to wait until he was 50 to enjoy his money. James thought, let's fast-track this by using debt. He found an investment property worth $500,000 with enough cash flow from the rental yield to pay the debt repayments. He used his $50,000 as a deposit and bought the property. Let's say George's stock portfolio performs a generous 12% annually and he reinvests his earnings. And let's say James's property performs a conservative 5% annually and James utilizes the equity to reinvest. After 5 years, who made a greater return on their $50,000? We already know it'll be James from what I explained previously, but I think you'll be surprised by how much more money James actually made. Let me show you. George starts with $50,000. By reinvesting his annual 12% return, the first year George has $56,000, the second year $62,720, the third year $70,246.40, fourth year $78,675.97, and finally in the fifth year $88,117.08. So relative to his $50,000 initial investment, his total return is $38,117.08, a 76.23% return on investment in the 5 years. James starts with the same $50,000 into investment properties, returns 5% annually, and reinvests using debt as leverage. He starts by using his $50,000 as a deposit and borrows $450,000 to get the first property worth $500,000. After a year, it's worth $525,000. Then the second year, $551,250. In the second year, James uses the equity to get another loan and purchases another property for $450,000. In the third year, property 1 is now worth $578,812.50 and property 2 is worth $472,500. In year 4, property 1 appreciates to $607,753.13 and property 2 to $496,125. In that fourth year, James used the equity in property 1 to buy property 3 worth $500,000 and used property 2 to buy property 4 worth $400,000. In the fifth year, property 1 is worth $638,140.79. Property 2 is worth $520,931.25. Property 3 is worth $525,000 and property 4 is worth $420,000. The loan in property 1 is $545,000. Property 2 is $445,000. Property 3 is $450,000 and property 4 is $360,000. If we minus the loans from the property values, we get James's equity in the property portfolio. The total value of the 4 properties is $2,104,072.04, and the total value of loans is $1,800,000. Therefore, James's equity value is $304,072.04. So relative to his initial $50,000 investment, his return is $254,072.04, which is a 508.14% ROI. After 5 years, George made a modest $38,117.08, whereas James made $204,072.04 more than George. Even though George's portfolio returned 7% more annually, James made over 5 times more with leverage. To summarize, the rich use debt as leverage to increase the principal. This way, they can chase modest gains and make massive profits. It's best to find assets that produce cash flow to fulfill debt obligations. That way, no money goes out of your pocket and you get a much greater return on your investments. If you find these resources of value, then hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Remember, using debt as leverage will give you a greater outcome with less effort. Hit the subscribe button and view the next video and get more simple guides to grow your wealth.